Welcome to Gospel Tangents, the best source for Mormon history, science, and theology, and first daily Mormon history podcast. I'm Rick Bennett. In our final conversation with Bob Roylance, the author of the Yucatan Peninsula theory of the Book of Mormon, we're going to talk about the kings of Tikal. He thinks that really adds some evidence to his theory. We'll also talk about DNA. It's going to be a tough one for him, I think. Also, we're going to score his theory versus other theories. So how does his theory stack up? You won't want to miss this conversation. Check it out.
I'm trying to remember what else there is. I don't want to play too much of a critic, but I feel like I do have to ask the critical questions.
Oh, yeah, we're here for...
What else is there?
You know, we could talk about the kings of Tikal, if you want to talk about that.
Okay, how do they relate to the Book of Mormon?
We have got a publication out where we identify 34 connecting periods or dates between the Tikal, the Lamanites. We figured that was a Lamanite stronghold. And the kings, the most impressive date connection is when that final war took place at 375. And then there's the first time that the people started to leave the church after Christ came was around 90 A.D. And that's about the same time kings started up again. So we think that was, and then the fact that the 350 A.D. treaty happened the same time a new king arrived that was very aggressive in his fighting. And then the general from Teotihuacan was in various cities on the west side of the land of Cumorah, preparing. It appeared like he was preparing for the battle. They're in Hamel and also in Ria Azel. They're just on the very edge of the land of Cumorah. And the fact that the sacrificial children was in that area. And we have about 35 of these things all planned out. It just is beyond any, to have all that many connections is pretty impressive. And
Do we have any Book of Mormon names in there? Or these are Mayan names, I'm guessing, so they probably might be hard to match them up. Lamani, yeah, that's.
I don't know how that got there, but anyway, that whole area there is just really amazing. The final Jaredite War just fits like a glove, and how the waters of Ripliancum and the Hill Comnar, and how that the route that they took just fits really well, and so these are all things that just add up, keep adding up. And one of the things that I love to do when I go there, whenever I go through, there's the narrow strip of wilderness that goes from the East Sea to the west till it hits the Pacific Ocean. Mm-hmm. I think that's almost a consensus amongst the Mesoamerican people, that is the narrow strip of wilderness. Well, there's one place where there's a gap in that strip where people can go through. And like the Book of Mormon says, that the Moroni did a lot of fortifications to keep the Lamanites on the south side of the narrow strip of wilderness. Well, if you go through that gap, you can see these fortifications right there. And then I just sit there and say, okay, now just envision, the people of Ammon all going through the narrow. Just envision the sons of Mosiah coming through that neck. And you go down the list, and it's kind of fun to sit there and say, hey, this is where it really happened. And that's just a very, very persuasive, part of the Book of Mormon, that's where those things took place. Another thing that really fits is the Hill Riplah War. Man, we've got a place that nails that just... they go from the Lamanites were attacking the Ammonites in Jershon, and Moroni had such an army there that they decided to go another place to fight. So they're going to go to Manti. So they went around the South Wilderness, which we've got nailed, I think, really well, to the headwaters of the Sidon River, the Passion River. And there's two rivers that come together just about the right spot. And then the Lamanites went to this hill, and they had to climb the hill. Now, why didn't they just follow the river? Because the river goes under the ground. And then it comes out on the underside of the hill. And so they go up on the north side of the hill, where Moroni is stationed with his group. Well, not on top of the hill, but down on the bottom. So it says they go by Moroni was on the west side, but they end up on the east side of the river where the soldiers of Lehi. Well, we have that route perfectly set up. And then Lehi drives them back across the river, and there's a deep channel there that describes perfectly how they had the advantage over the Lamanites. And so there's just those kind of things all the time that just fit just really well. And I don't see how it could happen any other way. I mean, I don't know, if you take that literally. And then another thing is when they had the war where the Lamanites were chasing, they were in the land of Gideon, and they were chasing the Lamanites to Zarahemla, and they met them on the banks of the Passion or the Sidon River, and they piled up on the river, and they had to throw them in the river so they could get back across and chase them again. But they said, and this says that they went northwest. Well, the Sidon River was going north, so how'd they go northwest? Well, the Sidon River takes a turn, so it allows. Then they go chase them up what we call Hermounts. Or not the national park there of Lanacondom, and that all fits just perfectly. So it just goes on and on. I can spend all day just taking every story in the Book of Mormon. Lehi's failed attempt to find the Zarahemla. Perfect reason why they wouldn't have found Zarahemla, and they just followed the wrong river. And then the Richard Houck in his studies in Salama, he came up with about 40 reasons why that is so, and I come up with another 10 after all of our other things have fed in well, and so that just seems like it just goes on and on like that, and so yeah, I agree that the Atlantic crossing is a problem. I agree with that. But there's 90% of these Book of Mormon guessers agree with that. So I haven't paid much attention to try to prove that. I just thought, well, that's one thing that I'm just going to say, okay, well, that sounds okay with me. I do think that the Nahum is a really good evidence. In fact, that is the only thing that we have as pure evidence is Nahum.
In the Middle East.
Yeah. And then then from there on, it's pretty persuasive. But anyway.
Well, I feel like I have to ask you the DNA question, because that seems like to me that's one of the biggest problems for any of the American theories. Baja, Mezzo, Heartland, Delmarva, it doesn't matter. What do you have to say about DNA?
Well, the church has come out pretty strongly that one of the things though that I wanted to do while I was in Guatemala was to get some of their DNA. I tried to find DNA there, but one of them did have his DNA, and he had some indication it was from Jerusalem.
It wasn't X2A, was it?
I don't know. But I don't know whether if that makes any sense or not. But
so you're not really a DNA expert, is that?
I don't know. I think there's, I don't know. I don't know. When I read the stuff the church puts out, I don't put much stock in DNA information.
So that's not an issue.
But I would like to take some DNA there just for the heck of it and see what they are. But that's expensive, so I decided not to do that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my understanding is usually it's not Middle Eastern DNA, it's Asian DNA. So,
Yeah. One of the things, though, that the Quechua language has a real close connection with the Hebrew language. I've been told that several times while I was there. So, to me, there's a pretty strong connection right there.
I know Brian Stubbs, and I need to get him on. Maybe this will. I hate. He lives in the Four Corners area, and I hate doing Zoom interviews, but I may have to in this case. But he says he's found some parallels with Uto and Aztecan, but I don't think I don't believe that's related to Mayan, because you're more of these are Mayan peoples, right?
Yeah. Well. Yeah, and you got to remember that the Olmecs assimilated into that Mayan society in a really big way. In fact, there's...
What's the language of the Olmecs, do you know?
I don't know. They're pretty...
I don't think it's Uto-Aztecan.
But, that final Jaredite War, who was that with? Was that Maya and Olmec fighting together?
Against each other?
Yeah, each other. I mean, each other.
Could be. I don't know. I mean, I thought it was Lamanites and Nephites.
Well, that's the Jaredites.
Oh, you're talking about the Jaredite War?
The Jaredite War.
Okay. So you think that the Olmecs and the Mayans were fighting against each other?
I think that's a possibility. I think it needs more research, but La Venta was destroyed. Where they totally, or not destroyed, it was ceased to exist around 400, 300 to 400.
The La Venta tribe?
It's Olmec. It's Olmec. But that, La Venta is right on the edge of our Book of Mormon lands. And so they could have taken forces from La Venta to help support the war. But that's highly speculative in my mind. But it's kind of fun to think about it, as maybe that's the reason for the war, you know. I know Coriantumr was moaning over the 2 million of his people that were lost, you know. That was before the war was over with by far. And so what about the other people? Who are the other people?
Mm-hmm.
Who were his people? Who are the other people? To me, that's a real good question. And I think the Olmecs could fill that spot.
Okay.
But that's not I don't consider that as a real firm evidence.
All right, so we've got another special guest. Tell us your name here.
I'm Russell Anderson.
You're the guy who helped me get the interview with Bob, right?
That's right. Bob is my brother-in-law.
Okay. So you wanted to hop in on the DNA issue.
Yeah, on the DNA, they say, well, the DNA's Asian DNA. Well, so is Israeli DNA, Asian DNA. We don't really have a Jerusalem DNA. And so...
Yes, we do.
Well, no, there are some DNA markers
Okay.
that some of the priestly class in Israel use, but that's not all of the tribe that Lehi and his family came from. We don't know that they had those particular markers. They could have easily been Asian DNA, and so the DNA is kind of a red herring.
Okay. Well, let me just throw this out at you. I don't know, Bob. I don't think you follow my blog very much or my podcast.
I'm going to.
You're going to. That's great. I'm glad to hear that. So the one thing I want to say, I did a couple of episodes on the Limba tribe. Are either of you familiar with the Limba tribe?
Only minorly.
Okay, so the Limba tribe is a black African tribe in South Africa. They claimed to be Israelites, basically. They did a DNA test, and shockingly, they have Jewish DNA. It's called the Cohen haplotype. In some ways, they date kind of similarly to the Lehi, time of Lehi. I mean, they're just black as black can be. They have a lot of ancient customs from ancient Israel from that time period. And so I will say I find it frustrating when people kind of dismiss the DNA and go, "Oh, we couldn't find DNA. We don't know." I'm like, yes, the Limba tribe is a perfect example of this. There's actually an African theory for the Book of Mormon, but he leaves out the Limba tribe. Like he doesn't even know about it. I'm like, if you're going to claim Africa, at least put it in South Africa, where the Limba tribe is, because it doesn't make any sense here. But anyway, so I still think that's a real sore spot with any Book of Mormon geography theories. We've never been able to tie anything, but the Limba tribe has been able to tie back in there, and so.
True.
Anyway.
The head of one of the departments at BYU.
Here, let's move your mic over there so you can hear that. Right.
Anyway.
You can pull a little closer. Go ahead.
I don't want to talk any more about DNA.
We're going to say something about the head of BYU.
Off the record.
Off the record? No, we're on camera here.
Yeah, I won't get my BYU friends in trouble. So.
Okay.
I was just going to say on the
Okay, turn the mic.
the narrow neck of land. Bob was talking about how there's just these lakes and
Okay, I
so
need
forth.
to turn over here. Let me zoom in on the map a little bit.
But there's also, isn't it true, Bob, that there's no archaeological ruins in these areas where the narrow
lake
necks
was?
are?
Where the lakes are.
Yeah, and even all the way to the coast, there's no archaeological ruins.
So that's another question I had. I knew I should have picked up 3 microphones. Because the South American theory, one of their big theories is basically most of South America was underwater. And so Chile becomes basically an island. It's perfectly north-south. It's great. Problem is, if most of South America is underwater, that was true like 2 million years ago or something.
Yeah.
It's not true for Book of Mormon times.
No.
And so as we're looking at this map of the Yucatan Peninsula, what I'm curious about is these lakes, did they go all the way to the ocean, or were they just big, like the Sea of Galilee lakes?
No, they didn't go to the ocean.
Okay.
So you're probably going to ask, what about Hagoth?
Okay, I wasn't, but go ahead.
Well, Hagoth went. There's the outlet of the West Sea is the San Pedro River.
Anyway, continue about Hagoth.
Yeah. So it said he went northward. And then another place he said he went to the land. The land northward, which is more of a place than a direction. But there are some people think, and I like to play with this idea, that he went north if he went directly north from the outlet of the Usimacinta River, he would end up at the mouth of the Mississippi. And a lot of the things that happened up in the Iowa. And
So you're tying this all into Heartland here.
I am.
Didn't expect that.
So there's a perfect example why they have some of the things, those mounds are.
Heartland connects everybody now.
And so I've watched some podcasts or YouTube stuff on the area, and
I'm going to get your email address. I'm going to give you hours of stuff to watch.
Okay. And they are totally convinced that it has Maya influence. A lot of those pyramids. They don't have stone, so they have to build it out of dirt. But
You're talking about the mounds in Iowa and everything?
yeah.
Okay.
And there's a certain period of time in there where, and the Heartlanders seem to be onto something, where they were fairly advanced people, And
So Hagoth started the Heartland.
I don't know.
Possibly.
I don't think it's something you ought to just dismiss, but I'm not going to say.
Remind me, when did Hagoth live? Do we know?
Was it
About 80 BC, something like that.
Okay. 80 BC. Okay, so right before time of Christ. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
Something like that.
I thought it was after Christ.
No.
Okay.
I can't remember either.
We could find out real quick, but that's kind of a fun thing to think about. And he went northward. Well, if you look at the standard Mesoamerican model, if he were to leave at where they say the narrow neck of land is, he'd go west for 200 miles. Then it turns around and goes north for a little bit. So here again, the directions don't add up very well. Where we go straight north, And but I do think that he took some of them into the land northward because it says so. So who knows? Okay, what else have we need to cover? One thing.
Do you have a website, by the way? I should ask that.
What?
Do you have a website or book or anything
Yeah.
about it? What is it? What's your website?
bookofmormon.org.
bookofmormonlands.org.
Bookofmormonlands.org. Okay.
It's sort of out of date, but it's has a lot of good stuff in it.
Okay.
So there's an area that I find really fascinating in the land of Nephi. I call it the Amulon district. Amulon was one of these bad guys from the King Noah, and he set up a town there, fairly close to Jerusalem, where we have the and then he's given the authority from the king of the land of Nephi to supervise Shiloh and Shemlon, and he's already over his own town of Amulon, and he is the one that built Jerusalem, and he is the one that is controlled over Helaman's group. So I call that the Amulon district, and it also includes the Forest of Mormon and the baptismal area of Alma, and it all just fits like a glove. I mean, it's just a neat. And then when Ammon goes into Ishmael and has all those miraculous things happen, and there's about 6 towns in that part of the area that all become Ammonites, Madoni, Shemlon, Laman. Anyway, so if you're going through Guatemala on Highway 5, essentially everything to the west is Ammon country, and everything to the east is Amulon's country, or the Lamanites. And it just all works out just like you think it ought to. And so it's just the whole area was converted by Ammon and his brothers, But Amulon and Amulek, they became the Amulites and the whatever. Sorry, my 84-year-old brain is starting to waver.
And since you mentioned at your age, I just want to mention this as an observation. I want to see if you agree or disagree. It appears to me, the kind of the top 2 theories right now are Mesoamerican and Heartland. And it seems like, and I hate to say this, the Heartlanders are dying off. They're getting old. They're 84 years old. They're dying. And the Heartlanders are like young, youthful. They're on the ascendancy. And it really feels to me like, it almost feels like there's going to be a kind of a shift where there's going to be more Heartlanders than Meso people. And I'm going to put you in the Meso camp, even though you're not John Sorensen or anything. But do you agree or disagree with that? I mean, you've got some other theories: Baja, Malay, Delmarva, South America.
I think there's a problem with putting him in the Meso group because the Meso has all the problems with direction and everything. This is really a different, stands on its own type of
True, but it's still subject to a lot of the same.
It just hasn't had the exposure is all.
Right.
If it had the exposure, I think that it would carry the day.
You need to start your own firm foundation conference.
That's right.
The Yucatan conference or something.
We are.
Because I think South America kind of has the same problem. It's been hard for me to. I don't know why. I've had a real hard time. I've been trying for 8 years trying to get somebody to propose South America, and nobody will come on. But so I appreciate you coming on, but it just seems like those are the kind of the top two, and the others are fringe. You know.
Yeah. When we started to merge, some of the people said, "Oh no, another model." You know, that was the reaction we
And
got.
see, I'm like, another model? Are you kidding me? This is great.
Let me show you something I'm working on right now. I've got about 10 pages.
Okay, get your microphone a little closer.
About 10 pages of issues that deal with geography,
Okay.
or a total of about 400
Scriptural references to
scriptural
geography.
references.
See, everybody has those scripture references, and it always fits their model the best, right?
Yeah, but you know,
When you create your own list, it's easy to pass.
that's for sure. I've experienced that. But we did come out flying in really good way with the Book of Mormon Central audit.
They put together a spreadsheet where it listed all these requirements, and then you could put in how you fit the requirements and your directions, and do it on Google Map and everything, and you could figure out, well, how much degrees are you off of north and so forth, and their Mesoamerica would fit because they would allow north to be plus or minus 45 degrees. But if you narrowed it down to like plus or minus 10 degrees, we're the only model that come close to fitting.
Yeah.
Do they have a Malay representative on there? Baja?
Well, they invited everybody to participate.
Yeah.
And I tried to get them. I had a pretty good relationship going on with the Heartlanders, and I've talked to them a lot. It's really fun. I find it.
They are passionate, I'll say that.
Well, but they don't have one model. They
do have multiple models.
Their
You're
cities move all over.
Yeah, there's several, but anyway, I would challenge anybody to help
Okay,
me.
here's a challenge, listeners, right here.
Yeah, I challenged anybody to come along and fill out how they feel like their model fits.
Okay.
I almost have, I'd say 90%. I have 5 as a top score. In other words, if you have,
So you rate your each criteria 1 to 5, is that what you're saying?
yeah, and if they're totally out, I'd give them a -5. Okay, if it just doesn't fit. And so I challenge, but I would measure that 80% of this 400 would have a 5 on mine. I mean, it just, every one of them just fits. And so this is about 8 pages, I guess, of these things right here. So I challenge anybody to come and help. Let's go through this. We need to, my plea is we got to have a consensus. Somewhere somebody's got to
We're
say.
just creating more and more theories.
Well, there just needs to be a consensus on a criteria to evaluate.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know John Sorensen has come up with one, and he's like you, dared people to compare against that. So,
Well, I think his was used in this with Book of Mormon Central.
oh, it was the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it was more designed. Well, I would say I won't get myself into trouble, but
Come on, we like trouble.
but what I would suggest is they take the BYU hypothetical model and use that as a guide to develop this. But we did really well. We 100% on we're the only ones that got every one of them right. But we had to change a little bit because it wasn't fitting the.
Were there any geology questions in there? I think Jerry Grover would have a few.
Yeah.
Well, I want to go back to your comment about the volcanoes.
Okay.
If you've got several volcanoes all exploding at the same time, you're going to have darkness over the whole Yucatan Peninsula.
Right.
So the fact that they're down around Lake Amulon and so forth doesn't really matter because they're going to cover the whole peninsula with a mist of darkness.
I think Jerry would disagree with you on that, and he's a geologist, so I'm going to defer to him.
Yeah, well, I don't know if he's discussed multiple simultaneous.
Yeah, he did. But
okay.
even then, I mean, as big as Mount St. Helens was, I don't remember seeing any ash.
Well, everybody west of it, east of it did. And we were in Portland, actually near Portland, and we got ash covered our yard.
Yeah.
And so we didn't see the mist. We didn't see the real cloud darkness necessarily because
Right.
it was a later eruption that hit us. But it was pretty widespread as far as how far it covered, all the way across the state of Washington.
Well, there's no doubt that part of if you had several volcanoes erupt, there would be a good part of our model that would be under that area. Not all of it. And I'm not sure the Book of Mormon says it covered all of the lands of the Book of Mormon.
Well, you're going to have to go back to 3rd Nephi and update your criteria here.
Because, it talks about it happening. But, when Christ came, he came a considerable time after the destruction, if you read that real close.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like 11 months later.
Yeah, 11 months later. And so I don't know. I need to talk to your friend.
Yeah. I'll put you in touch. I'm sure Jerry's a great guy. He's fun. I've got him coming back on. So, in fact,
Okay.
he translated the characters document, and that will be out by the time this is out.
Yeah.
So,
One of the things too, there's and it came to pass. Those characters are within our model.
and it came to pass.
Those glyphs that on the stela.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, you got a stela that's got those characters and
It came to pass, and they are in our area, in our proposed area.
Okay.
And so there's just lots of things that I don't know if there's anything. A lot of things I've missed here, but
That's okay. So your website, give us to it one more time, so people can check it out.
bookofmormonlands.org.
Bookofmormonlands.org.
Yeah.
And it's Bob Roylance.
Yeah, and Richard Terry,
And Richard Terry. And he's a former BYU
professor.
Doctor.
Ag professor.
No, he's he was when it was. Well, that's a long story.
Agronomy, is that what you
He's an
said?
agronomist, but when the church moved the agriculture department to BYU, Idaho, he stayed here and went into their plant
Sciences?
sciences.
Oh, okay.
And then he started doing this thing down in Guatemala and Belize and Yucatan, determining what the ancient crops did or why they did it. For instance, it talks about Lot, or not Lot. Oh man, I'm sorry. The fellow that built the big city in the game preserve, Lib. Well, he says you go into that area below where he was describing, and the animals there were eating back in those days. I mean, this sounds really strange that he could even determine that, but he seems to be able to do it. They were eating native stuff. Where you go out of that reserve, then the deer and the stuff were eating corn and things they were stealing from the farmers. He says you could tell the difference, almost the line, where the game reserve ended. And so those are some kind of fun little
All
things.
the ones that were eating people food got fat, right? Is that right?
Yeah. It talks about
That's what would happen
It talks
today,
about the
anyway.
highways, the
Yeah.
highways in the Book of Mormon.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, we got highways going everywhere there, and more so than any other place, by far.
And they all come together through that narrow neck.
And when you start talking about numbers, now they're anticipating there's 20 million people that are associated with all this stuff they're new finding. That's about the right number that's required for Book of Mormon numbers. And other models can't even begin to generate those kind of numbers. If you go into the land northward on these other Mesoamerican models. There's a few. There's one in Oaxaca that might fit a minor village. There's a little pile of dirt between La Venta and something else. But there's nothing there that will even come close to meeting that 20 million number. And so the 20 million number has to be fits the Yucatan really well, or the northern Guatemala and Belize.
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, that's a major issue. To me, that is a major issue.
Cool. Well, I've kept you a long time, and I don't want to take up your whole afternoon, but Bob Roylance and Russell Anderson, I'd like to thank you guys, especially Russell. Thank you for arranging this for me. It's always nice when my listeners arrange interviews for me. So really appreciate you guys for being here on Gospel Tangents.
Okay, thank you.
Glad to help.
Mm-hmm. I hope you enjoyed our conversation with Bob Roylance and Russell Anderson. Thank you for setting that up with me. So it's really fun to get another perspective on the Book of Mormon. In our next conversation, we're going to turn to the Hans Mill massacre site with archaeologist Paul DeBarth.
Because my students have been digging in Caldwell County and digging at Hans Mill, and we got an invitation to give a presentation to the Caldwell County Historical Society meeting in Polo. And on the way to that presentation, the question came up. Here we're digging on what the Mormons call the Hans Mill massacre site, but we're presenting to the Caldwell County Historical Society, which had a bunch of people that were on the attacking group in it. How do we address this matter and not be offensive? And I left it in the hands of the students, and they presented that night on the Hans Mill incident.
If you'd like to hear the entire interview uncut, subscribe on either Patreon or at gospeltangents.com. For just $5 a month, you can hear the entire audio uninterrupted. On our $10 tier, if you would like to see the whole video, you can see that either on youtube.com/gospeltangents, or I've got a special Facebook group devoted for full videos. So subscribe at gospeltangents.com and sign up for just $10 a month. For $20 a month, if you'd like to get some bonus content, maybe some of the stuff that ended up on the cutting room floor, you can sign up for that. And then if you'd like to talk to me for $100 a month, we'll do a monthly phone call on something like Zoom, and you can ask me anything you want. So thanks again. Also, don't forget about the merch, mugs, t-shirts, hats, things like that. I'm trying to get the ties up there. Hopefully I can get up there. And thanks again for watching Gospel Tangents, and click here for some more videos.